Hi, and welcome to the Soul and Survival podcast with Grant and Louise Bentley. We have run the Victorian College of Classical Homeopathy since 1995. We are both qualified practicing homeopaths, and Grant is also a naturopath. Together, we discovered a link between energy and facial structure based on traditional ideas from homeopathy that have roots going back 200 years. This project is called Homeopathic Facial Analysis, or HFA for short, and has been the cornerstone of clinical diagnosis and training courses since 1999. Between us, we have written and produced 7 HFA books, including Soul and Survival. Soul and Survival is the philosophy of energy influencing matter and how this energy forms individual facial structure, our unconscious drives and fears, our life patterns, and universal time cycles.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Soul and Survival podcast, and hello to you, Louise, on it's a bit of a, well, not wintry because it's still warm, but it's cooler than the 35 degrees Celsius for American people. That would be what, about 95-ish?
Late 90s or something, yeah.
Anyway, that's what it was yesterday, so it's a bit cooler today, which is good.
We're in summer. It's been hot, but today it's raining and it's a bit cooler. It's rather nice.
It's been a pretty traditional summer, really.
Yeah, I think so. Very nice.
Okay, so what's up?
Okay, well, it's 2025 and we're talking about different things to do with HFA, to do with Soul and Survival. Actually, I will mention that next week we're going to be having a recording done that we did for Homeopathy Hangout, which came out in December. So you can listen to this via Homeopathy Hangout, or we're going to just put it through our channel as well next week. So it's going to be us just talking about the benefits of training in HFA. So hopefully, I know a few of you have asked questions, a few of you have signed up. So hopefully we'll give you some really good reasons why you can enhance your homeopathy and your understanding of all things energetic and to do with your life via the HFA homeopathy or Soul and Survival paradigm. We were talking earlier, you do some wonderful conversations on Sunday mornings. So we should call this Sunday mornings. But anyway, and there was a quote that came up recently, which was, "The purpose of life is to discover your gift. The meaning of life is to give your gift away." And you went on to explain, you had a conversation with me about that topic in regard to how homeopathy via suppression teaches you the truth of that statement. How do you feel about repeating that conversation?
Okay, so like with all conversations, it's spontaneous. So I actually don't remember a lot of what we were saying.
Do you want me to read some more? Because I took some notes.
Did you?
I did, yeah. "The gift is from the unlived life of your parents. Your challenge is to use and to incorporate. Life is always trying to self-improve."
Okay, so no. Let's do it bit by bit.
Okay, bit by bit.
So the quote itself. Someone said this off a podcast. I hadn't actually ever heard that statement before.
It's nice. Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah, sure.
"The purpose of life is to discover your gift. The meaning of life is to give your gift away."
Yeah, it's a great saying. And so what did I say about that?
Well, then you said you started with the gift is from the unlived life of your parents, and then you went into suppression.
Oh, I know what I mean about that. Yep. Okay, I know what I mean. And you know when we were talking one time about Jung and the shadow, and I don't want to get too sort of psychotherapy about it all, but at the same time, homeopathy does incorporate aspects of it because that's just how the body works. So when we're talking about your gift to the world, what essentially we're talking about is that I have to go right back to the beginning. So one or both parents are stressed, as all people are, right? Mm-hmm. But whoever is stressed most dominantly, or if it's of equal strength, a little bit like the organon,
like the miasms
then
themselves.
They join, and they form a hydra-headed monster. But so what happens is that when you are really stressed, the next generation. So before conception, before conception, your body is succussing everything that you are experiencing. So you remember when I said homeopathy teaches you everything? I meant that. I'm not trying to. That wasn't trying to be hyperbolic. It wasn't trying to be symbolic. I mean it literally. It teaches you how everything works. At least, to our knowledge, how everything works. So what happens? So homeopathy has succussion, right? So what does succussion teach you? Well, what succussion teaches you is that when you're dealing with human beings, everything is imprinted. Every experience, every emotion is imprinted in you and onto you. But not only that imprint, just like the remedy itself, can last forever, which it does even now. But what happens is that it doesn't stay dominant necessarily forever, ever, because everything's in a hierarchy, right? When we take a hierarchy of symptoms and we base it on the importance, and that's how you read a case as success as well, right? But all right, so we're ahead of ourselves and off track already, or I am, not we.
It's okay. It's a very complex topic to make simple.
It's an extremely complex subject. And what we're looking at here is that every emotion and every event is remembered. And it's succussed, or what we mean by that, if you're not familiar with homeopathic terminology, is that it's imprinted onto us.
Is it onto us and imprinted to the universe as well? Like both ways,
it definitely is. It's both.
So it's a two-way street.
Ways.
Yeah.
And if you want to go really deep, I think that's one of the biggest. That's one of the reasons why we sleep. It's the transfer of imprinted information onto the ether.
And maybe in and out, perhaps. Do we draw down as well as push out?
You can draw down.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people experience all sorts of both destructive as well as constructive traits. Not traits, ideas from when they're asleep and through dreams and all sorts of things. Okay. So, yes, you can.
Okay.
All right, so we are imprinting every emotion that we have and every circumstance that creates that emotion. Now, the job of the survival instinct is exactly that. It's to survive. And in order to do that, it needs to understand the dangers that the next generation is going to be born into.
So the dangers as expressed by the stress of your parents.
Yes. So the more stressed your parent, the more that gets imprinted, sperm and egg, depending on which one. Then you got transfer of information, not just genetics, but including the information of all the stresses that are going on and which ones you are dealing with and which ones you are not dealing with. The ones you are not dealing with very well, the ones that are the most impacting both psychologically, emotionally and physically on the body of one or both of those parents, is the one that the next offspring needs to be born into. And so the survival instinct will equip that new child with the best that it can, the best survival instinct for that stress that it thinks it's going to be born into. Right? Does that make sense so far?
It really does. And I think we said something else, I can't remember where it is now, but something about how the survival instinct is trying to make something positive or some survival component out of the negative stress. And it may do it via giving you the opposite trait or an intensification of the negative trait.
Yes, it might. I don't know the mechanism of why. So for example, if a child is born and both parents are really busy or whatever it is, and they've been a little damaged themselves, they don't give enough love and attention to, let's just make it a son that's about to come into the world. So this son could be very attention seeking. or that because they're not giving it the affection that it wants, the survival instinct could also bring into the world someone quite cold,
reclusive
and withdrawn. If it was extreme, it could be sociopathic because it's got to deal with the lack of emotion, right? So anyway, so what happens is that the survival instinct equips the next generation to be able to cope with the type of stresses that the parents are struggling with. That's why it's a gift. It's a gift to the next generation because remember too, the survival instinct's just a program. God may have set this program in motion and be the brains behind it, but it is a program once it's in motion. So what that means is that when that child is born, they will develop this, quote unquote gift. We'll just call it a gift at this stage. It's an ability or a way of being able to deal with the stress it believes the world is going to throw at it. But often what happens is that when you express a personality of this type, sometimes that can be grating to the parents or the people around them because it's the very thing that they can't cope with either, right? So they know that they should be almost coping in that way. Oh, gosh, I'm not sure I'm doing a good job
No, I
here.
think you are. Keep going.
Right, but what they do is that they identify it as a part of self, but it's a self that they're suppressing. And so the display of it.
So there's a likelihood that they will try to suppress in the child what they're suppressing in themselves.
Yeah, and what happens then if that occurs, and only if, this is where this sets up a whole real problem now, because what you have is that the child does a presentation of self to the parents or to their friends later on. There's a second childhood in the brain that I reckon goes on, and that's during teenage years. So, but at any of those stages, early childhood, teenage years, if the gift of self is knocked severely by others and ridiculed, or then now what happens is that you are in a position where you have to acknowledge that who you are is not good enough for recognition by others. Right.
Which is a problem for this boy who's attention seeking, perhaps.
Yeah. So, all right. So he's attention seeking, let's just say, and we'll make it constructive. Okay. So he's happy and he's joking around. And he likes to play practical jokes and he likes to make people laugh. And that's to compensate for this. His parents, who think life is serious, wish they were having fun, but they have to suppress all their fun and be pragmatic and serious all the time. But it's their suppression of their fun side that then creates a fun, attracting and a fun-loving child, because that was the lack of fun was causing the stress. Do you see what I mean?
Yep. So it's just the pendulum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
So this boy comes into this world looking for that and displaying that constantly, which becomes really irritating to the parents who wish that he'd take life a lot more seriously because they have to.
Yep.
And suddenly, stop joking around. Not all life's fun, you have to, you're just making a joke out of everything. You've got to take some things seriously. So what do you learn from that? Well, the kid learns that really the expression of that fun, humorous side needs automatically to be curtailed. Now, in some kids, they'll hit a balance straight away and know when to joke around and when not to. But if that kid's really sensitive, they'll suppress it entirely.
Yeah.
And now what will happen is that they'll develop a far more presentable side.
And this is the one you say is the ego that's creating the persona to be socially and familially acceptable.
Yeah, that's right. So what you've learned is that either with your friends as a teenager or as a child with your parent, or maybe a little bit of both, you've learned that a genuine presentation of an unabashed self is not acceptable. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's going to get you into trouble or make you feel disliked. So now what you do is you have to go, like everyone does, when A doesn't work, you go to B. But the thing with B is that if joking around isn't acceptable, well, where do you go? Well, you go into serious again, right? So you go to that opposite side.
Which is exactly what the parents were suffering with.
Yeah, but this time it's a cultured side. So you're doing it, or you're doing it consciously to avoid the ridicule of others.
Yep.
Right? So what that means is that it's not a natural personality. It's a cultured personality.
Yeah.
The only thing that's natural about it is your need for the good approval of either family or friends, or both.
Yep.
Right. Now, that's the natural part of this. So now what you do, though, is you construct something you think they will like. Now, that's at the detriment of that fun, light-hearted self.
Which you came into this world with because it was a counterweight to the stress of the parents.
Yeah. Now, the problem with that is that fun, light-hearted self is not cultured. It's a program, right? And that program means that it's not going away.
Oh, sorry, when you say the fun self, you actually mean the counter to the fun self, which has been developed as part of the ego, put to protect itself from the judgment of the parents.
No, that's the cultured side.
Okay, I'm getting a bit muddled
here.
Yeah,
I know it does.
Back,
it does get like that.
Yeah,
okay.
It does.
All right. There's a manufactured personality and there's a natural personality. The natural personality is the one that the survival instinct has selected to be the best way of coping with the stress that your parents are telling you is telling the universe is the world that you're going to be born into.
Gotcha.
Right. But that's not that has been knocked on the head and ridiculed and laughed at, and now you feel embarrassed by yourself, your natural self. So now what you do is you cultivate a self that is a presentation or a package, a present to those that are around you in order to get their good their good opinion.
Yep.
Right? But it's a cultivated one. It's a manufactured one. You know, when they talk about things like the Buddhists talk about how the ego's not real, that's what they mean. I'm pretty sure that's what they mean. Or if that's not what they mean, then perhaps, this is an addition to what they mean. I don't know fully. I'm not claiming to know Buddhism very well. But I understand that the ego is a trickster and the ego's not real. But I have to put it into homeopathic terms to understand it.
Okay.
And the way and when I put it into homeopathic terms, it's a suppression of the original self, the fun-loving one, for the adoption of a serious one in order to get a pat on the head and a kiss on the cheek and the rewards.
Natural and manufactured.
Yeah, natural and manufactured.
So now what happens with the manufactured side?
Well, the manufactured side just probably gets rewarded, and so you keep cultivating it.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. The natural side belongs to the survival instinct, right? So it means it's a program. Now, what that means is it's never going away. So there's going to be a constant yearning for expression,
right?
Because it's meant to be expressed. That, if we go back to the original, not a statement. What is it? What do you call it?
The quote.
Yeah, the quote.
Yeah, the quote. The gift.
The
gift.
That's the original gift.
To discover your gift is your purpose, and then the meaning is to give it away.
Yeah, but what happens if you've suppressed it? Then you can't give it away.
You can't even express it.
No, that's exactly right. But the thing is that it's there 100% of the time, whether or not your now cultivated ego understands it or not. Mm-hmm. Now, where this becomes really important homeopathically is that your cultivated self could be so rewarded for that cultivation mm-hmm. that you could end up with 3 houses, fantastic, cars, climbing up the social ladder, the whole thing, and you will be discontent. Mm-hmm. You will not feel complete. You'll feel anxious mm-hmm. or you'll feel angry. You'll feel that the slightest thing is out of your control and you will not like that. The one thing that you will never feel is complete. And that's because you're not expressing what the vital force or the survival instinct is geared to do. Now, then what happens, and this is, like I think it was last episode or maybe it could have been 10 ago, I don't remember.
That's okay.
But we were talking about life themes.
Yeah.
Right? Now, a life theme is a repeating pattern of events and circumstances that seem to be beyond your control but always seem to happen to you. Mm-hmm. You always end up nurturing somebody or you always end up losing things. You can call it a variety of different things. You can call it self-sabotage. You can call it fate. You can call it a sardonic humour of God. You can call it a whole range of things. The only thing we don't call it is us. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, and this is where it kind of gets interesting, is that true self, as opposed to the egotistical cultivated self, belongs to the survival instinct, or otherwise known as the vital force. Mm-hmm. The vital force controls all of your energy patterns and it animates all of life, both physical and just every aspect.
Emotional, intellectual, etc.
Yeah. So we also know that 90% of communication is non-verbal. So we interact with the world in an energetic, non-verbal way. That means that we attract certain people because of what we put out. Those people will attract the potential for circumstances mm-hmm. that we, also. And so as a result, like I've had people saying, this sort of person keeps coming into my life over and over and over again. I remember I was saying to you one time about how a very, very old patient once said that they could walk into a hotel or a bar with 100 millionaires and one no-hoper. And that no-hoper is going to come up to them. And they're going to fall for that no-hoper, and they just do it over and over and over again. That's them. Now, why are they doing that? They're doing that because the unconscious or the vital force or the survival instinct, so we're starting to accumulate a whole lot of different descriptors for all the same thing, mm-hmm. but is in charge of not only your body, meaning the actions and the energy that you throw out, but the energy around your surrounding area and what it attracts and what it repels. So the thing with the survival instinct is that it needs to reproduce the environment that it is built to survive. So if you are here to be a light-hearted moment, you're going to start attracting a whole lot of seriousness into your life because your job, the job of the vital force when you were first conceived, was to lighten the moment.
So why would you be attracting seriousness?
Because if it's already happy, you're not needed. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be serious times so you can lighten that moment.
Okay, so your gift is to help other people with the opposite issue.
Yeah, is to just come in and to, in a world of grief, maybe be a little bit of sunshine, just be a little bit of brightness, be a little bit of something to brighten the moment and to lift it, because it was just all too stark and too dreary and too gunmetal grey when you were conceived. But so you will crave some sort of lightness in order. Jeez. Yeah, no, I know what I'm trying to say, but it's hard for me to say.
So if we go back to our boy whose parents are stressed and they're taking life really seriously, and he's born with a survival instinct that says, have some fun, joke around, take it easy. But he gets criticised for that. It doesn't feel right in his family of seriousness. Perhaps at school he's going too far in the classroom, etc., etc. But his survival instinct is programmed to be light and cheery. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But he will keep drawing serious situations to himself, which then, if he's using his gift wisely, he would put the lightness and the fun back into this.
That's his gift to other people.
Right. And so he needs to, one, understand it, and then two, to help share it, give it away, so to speak.
Yeah, you have to give it away. You have to give it away in order for the survival instinct to feel safe. You have to be using your gift.
Yeah.
Now you also need to understand, this is a bit like Jung's shadow, is that it doesn't have to be a major part of your personality or your daily life.
You don't even have to do it all the time.
No, but it has to be incorporated somewhere, just to let it know that know that it knows that it's all okay. Right? And I'll tell you one area that kind of explains this really well is the Enneagrams. They sort of explain this concept really well. In fact, they do a much better job than what the muck up that I'm doing at the moment. I know what I'm trying to say, but
so for those that don't know, this is something we came across, I think, in about 2020, when a lot of us around the world had a lot of time at home placed on us. So some people made it productive, others didn't. But anyway, we sort of started looking at all sorts of interesting things and came across these things called Enneagrams.
You think we would have, in all of this time, have stumbled across it earlier.
It's weird, isn't it?
But anyway, I didn't. I hadn't.
Well,
so.
It's kind of like when you wrote Soul and Survival, and there's someone came up to you and said, this is Hinduism 101, and you said, I've studied all the different religions, but I never actually got around to Hinduism.
No.
But you discovered it through the homeopathic clinic, which is extraordinary. But anyway, we did the Enneagrams, and as best I can explain them, it's kind of like looking at a 9-pointed star with cross pieces that go to opposite parts of the star. And every bit like our 7 miasms, there's 9 different categories, and they're more personality based. They're definitely kind of stress responses, and they're about gifts and offsets to gifts. And you really saw a lot of this, this model in those 9 things. And we did try to see if there was some crossover with the 7, but if anyone knows their maths or math, 9 and 7 just do not interact with one another as numbers until 63. Maybe at 63 there's something, but not in the early phases. So tell us more.
Well, I can't do too much because I'm not an Enneagram expert. There's a guy that I really like on YouTube, and I think it's called Know Your Type, or You Have a Type, or something like that.
Yeah,
youngish guy.
It starts with C, his name. I can't remember. Colchin or something like that.
I don't know. Anyway. Don't know. But anyway, I mean, I enjoy him. He's pretty good. And then I listened to a couple of things by Beatrice Chestnut, I think her name was.
Yeah, it's a beautiful name, isn't it?
And she's great too. And I really like that. There's some, just like with homeopathy too, there's some ultra lightweight stuff out there when I was reading it, and I don't think it's really worth it all that much. But those two people are really good if you want to get into it. But if you take, for example, let's take an Enneagram 1 because it's the very first one. Now, Enneagram 1 is a person that is, well, even though I'm going to use exactly what I tell people not to do.
Yeah, that's ironic. Don't do this to choose remedies.
No, don't do it to choose remedies. But if you look at the archetypical arsenicum patient, where they are fastidious, they're always trying to be right, they're always trying to control, they're always just trying to be good. Right, and so one of the stress lines, I think they call it in the Enneagram, where how they can get some relief goes to the number 7. And number 7 is to be more lighthearted and party going and all that kind of stuff. So, that's how a 1 needs to relieve their stress. In fact, in what we're talking about, it wouldn't surprise me that a suppressed 7 becomes a number 1. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that there's a rebound effect across both of them.
And it becomes really important and a balancing part of their life when they go back to it. So in survival instinct or HFA terms, what you're likely to do is be if we take this kid, he's a fairly fun-loving sort of kid. He likes these parties. He likes just being lighthearted and not taking life too seriously. Then a lot of things happen to him in reference to, he doesn't do well at school. His parents get on his case. His friends start to advance beyond him and so on. And so now he decides, well, this isn't working for me. This is ridiculous. I better do something about this and I better start becoming a lot more serious. So he then becomes a lot more serious and starts, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and the fun goes out of his life a little bit, but he's more rewarded at the same time. So essentially what we're saying is that number 7, that fun-loving bit, has to be incorporated in some aspect of his life. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much reward that he gets for his number 1-ness, he's never going to feel complete or satisfied. Now, in homeopathic terms, essentially what that means is that is a lot of discontentment, which usually comes out in either anxiety or anger.
Yeah.
And then, the fun that you were originally looking for becomes more and more distant to you, because the more serious and angry and anxious you become, the less people want to include you into the fun aspect, because you're becoming too serious and a drag to be around.
Yeah, so you see the same model with the survival instinct for all of us. Within the miasm that we're born into, there will be a lock and key with the miasm, which locks and keys with your facial structure, which locks and keys with the remedies that belong to that miasm. But the personality itself, or the offset, the shadow, whatever, it's not helpful to use that to find the remedy, but it is helpful for understanding yourself.
No, but I occasionally can use it as a rubric.
Occasionally,
because what will happen is that if it's really suppressed, and if you're really not doing anything with it, and your body is becoming your health isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
The stronger your survival instinct is going to try and find a place to be able to express itself, and that will be coming out. That will be coming out in the energy that you emit to bring the repeating circumstances towards your life, which we call a life theme. So your life theme might be just something like anger, or it could be caring for people. If you're a really nurturing person, the negative side of that is that you might have a high needs child, or you might have you might have to nurse. I've known it where people have had to nurse not just one but two partners through debilitating diseases and so on. So that cares for others, because that's wearing them down, that becomes a rubric, you see.
And so you think if you sort of track that back, that the possibility of that person having one or both parents that's very stressed and unable to nurture effectively, therefore the child's born with a high degree of ability to nurture. If they express that nurturing properly, that will balance them out. But if they don't, they'll tend to draw to themselves situations of high nurturing needs.
It's a possibility that there is positive, there is really positive nurturing, and then there's nurturing forced upon you. But the vital force wants to live in Groundhog Day. Yeah. This is the one thing that you need to understand. Even if you just turn away and you go, well, look, this quack's he's overstepping the mark now. No, he's losing me now. Right? Maybe so. All right? I'll just leave it at that, and you either take it on board or you don't. But the one thing that I can assure you of is that your survival instinct likes to live in Groundhog Day. And the reason that it does that is because it knows it can survive it. Right? And the thing that your survival instinct does not like is that it does not like surprises. So it's going to reproduce itself constantly. And you see this in, I know I often talk about pandas, but that's because I deal with it all the time. And one of the things that you see with pandas is that so many of these kids have OCD traits that just trap them. Trap them in their house, trap them in their room in the house, or trap them in their bed in their room in their house.
Certainly trap their mind.
Yeah. And they just have developed these rituals that they go over and over and over and over again. How is that beneficial to them? Well, it isn't really beneficial when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. But if you look at it at a micro level, you're looking at a nervous system that thinks that they are in imminent danger. Right? And if you're in imminent danger, then you have to protect yourself. But if you don't know where the danger is, then the vital force or the survival instinct just says, well, look, now's not the time to extend beyond our shell. Let's just keep doing the same thing that we did yesterday because we survived yesterday. So if we just do exactly the same thing today, we should be okay. And we call that kind of survival instinct stress OCD, ritualistic behaviour. There's a lot of descriptors for it. Fixed ideas, but what essentially it means is you've got a stress survival instinct that is not going to let you extend beyond the known. Now, what homeopathy does is that it calms that instinct down. It switches the switch off. It's not the instinct's fault. It's made that way. Right? So, but what the instinctive response is doing is that it's responding to the energetic changes. Remember, we once spoke about homeostasis, and we spoke about how your vital force, your energetic body, has its own homeostasis. And that when it goes beyond that or below it, then that whatever pre-prescribed frequency, then above or below is deemed as stressful. The more you go above and the further you drop below, the increased stress that you're under. So what a homeopathic does is that it brings that state of equilibrium, which then the brain just goes, all right, well, we can switch this switch off. The survival instinct doesn't have to be looking for danger. It doesn't have to be repeating the same patterns in life over and over and over again because it's been taken out of danger. It's not like the remedy or anything to do with the consultation is reasoning with it. It's all an energetic process. This switches on when you are out of energetic homeostasis. When you are in homeostatic energetic homeostasis, it switches off again.
So we've gone and I know how easily this is done because everything interrelates. But if we go back to the gift, a gift sounds so positive, whereas an OCD, also to do with the survival instinct, sounds really negative. How do we differentiate the gift in the person's life theme from the negative presentations?
Well, the gift has to be consciously used.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be in a positive way,
yeah,
right?
And it's got to be consciously used. Mm-hmm. When you're in a state of extreme stress, you're not conscious.
Yeah, you're on a program. So you're saying the program's important, but only when you're in a conscious, positive energy state.
Yes.
Then you can, as an adult, obviously it's not for children, this is for adults.
Yeah.
As an adult, you can learn what your gift is. You can then develop your gift because your energy's good, your focus is good, you're understanding yourself, you can see the bigger picture. You can then develop that gift, and then as a consequence, you're in a position to share it and give it to others.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have person B, right? And it doesn't have to be big things. Like the stresses don't have to be monumental. Like we're not talking about sexual abuse or slavery or anything like that. We're just talking about everyday things, but it causes a stress in that person. And now what happens is the next generation come in with the ability to be able to withstand that stress one way or another. For example, and I'm making this up again, but parent A, male, mum or dad, doesn't make any difference, is a suppressed artist, right, or a suppressed musician.
Yep.
They have to get on with the pragmatic, practical side of their life, and they're successful at it, but they never express that really creative side of themselves. And as a result of that, life for them is as best as they make it, but not colourful.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it becomes maybe their only or their biggest stress because everything else is doing okay. So now what happens at the moment of conception
for their child,
mm-hmm. that the non-expression of creativity is stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So that child is either going to come into this world with exceptional creative expression
mm-hmm.
or no desire for the arts whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. And
either way, they counteract the stress.
You're accounting for the stress in either direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So now if it's, let's say they're a creative person,
mm-hmm.
And I mean a really creative. A lot of people have creativity in them,
mm-hmm.
but actually not many people are what I would deem really creative.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be really creative, you have to think differently from the group.
Mm-hmm.
Because an artist in whatever art is not about, when I'm talking about you are an artist as a musician, for example, you're not playing 70s rock, mate. Or you're not just doing hip hop, or you're not doing anything. You're not doing something that's been reproduced 1,000 times.
Something known,
right?
yeah.
An
mm-hmm.
artist is the one, while everyone's looking through the west window of the house, says, I wonder what the east looks like.
Yeah.
And they come up with something different. That's what I mean by an artist. You might be a good guitar player, or you might be a great performer, or just a born entertainer. But that doesn't make you a great artist.
So they think differently. They're not like fit for the corporate sort of factory model
not a
at all.
hope in hell.
They're not good for the business life or any of that.
That person is going to leave school with little to no self-esteem, because what we're dealing with here is a system that rewards linear thought and really just obeying the rules, right? And sitting tests to prove how much you've obeyed the rules.
Following what's already come before. But true creativity is about something new.
And it's about lateral thinking.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of these people can't do any of this stuff that's required of them. So a lot of this is where you hear these stories of really smart artists that come out thinking they're completely stupid.
Yeah.
They're not. They just see the world in a different way.
Yeah, which can still be unbelievably a gift to the world. It's just, but if it's not expressed, if they don't actually connect with that part of their survival instinct, they're not using their gift properly.
No, but now you see how easily the suppression of this can go from generation to generation. Because we had parents suppressed by necessity, their creative side. An ultra-creative person then becomes their offspring and is born into this world with very little likelihood that that's going to be applauded all that much by the time they finish school, right? Left bank artists are traditionally poor.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because, there's this big focus on individuality, huge focus. But really, the school system, the university system is actually very rote. I mean, it looks to be individual. I remember we were in New Zealand and we went to some, one of these kind of touristy things. But it was kind of interesting because they were reflecting on how the Maoris raised how the communities operated, before the Western people arrived. And one of the things that we talked about, we noticed, was how they really observed the children. And by the age of 7, they kind of, and it sounds like typecasting, but in a way it was so much better than that. They really acknowledged the natural ability and skill of the child at the age of 7. And then all the education was focused upon that area to really bring it to the best that it could be brought to, and not to, force them into doing a whole lot of things they weren't fit for, which kind of sounds really nice.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Mind you, I wouldn't get too idealistic either. I think still in the end, the tribe needs more hunters than poets.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
But there's a role for the shaman. One shaman. You can't have too many.
What happens if you have 5?
Well, that's a problem. You have to split off and go somewhere else, I think.
That's a problem. So what do the other 4 do?
I mean, it's all about balance, isn't it? For the group and the individual. Everything's about balance.
Yeah. It is. But you can, and I'm not having shots at people either, because suppression of self is often done via necessity. It's not this, when we talk about how, and maybe this is maybe a topic for another day, but, when we talk about we suppress ourselves and we shouldn't do that because we shouldn't really care about what other people's opinions are. Mm-hmm. Well, whoever tells you that, then run for the hills, because they have no idea what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'll go into that more maybe next time.
Okay, well, look, that was really interesting. And I know it sounds like it's a long way from the clinic, but it's the core of the clinic, and yet it's not necessarily the best way to find
but
your
you
remedy.
Need to know how health and illness and psychology works within the person. I'm not talking about psychology in a typical sense of psychology, but just how your own mental state affects you, why certain emotions are suppressed, why people and certain people and events keep coming towards you, positively or negatively. So to understand energy, and how it works, we need to understand the model. So it's not practical in the sense of, gotcha, so this will be suppression equals NatMer. That's not it at all.
No.
But you, in order to understand the person's story, you need to be able to know how. If you're going to read their autobiography, you first need to know how to read.
Yeah, of
and
course.
This is what we're doing. This is alphabet stuff.
Well, look, I always find it fascinating, the life themes, and I know they're in Soul and Survival in their template form. There are some examples there, but, you know, everybody has a life story. Everybody has a survival instinct. Everybody has parents. Their parents had something going on. They brought that into the world. They've had to deal with that ever since. I actually think knowledge helps a lot in understanding the stress of who we are.
Yeah.
It does help a lot. And it can give you an inroad into what to do as well, like how to be your best self, acknowledge the reality of it. There's a lot in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from being too arrogant when you understand that everybody, including yourself, is a screw-up.
Definitely. That's one thing you learn when you do homeopathy clinic. You think, wow, thought I was bad, but there you go. Yeah. We're all pretty bad. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. Look, helping other people's a positive thing. You need to be open-minded and curious to be a homeopath, I think, to be a good homeopath. But, yeah, lots to think about.
All right. Well, we'll speak a bit more about this next week then.
Thanks, Grant.
Bye, all.
Thanks for listening to Soul and Survival. If you are interested in more information, books, courses, consultations, learning more about facial analysis or life themes, please visit our college site, Victorian College of Classical Homeopathy, vcch.org.